So with that, believe it or not, with the delay, I had a whole bunch of other screens. Okay. Thank you all for your patience. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, as extended on June 15, 2021, with the governor's signing of Senate Bill number 2475, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the meeting ends abruptly, the meeting will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. It is 6:07. I will now call to order the January 10th, 2022 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items?
I've not received any.
Does it look like anyone from the public you are not expecting is on the meeting?
Not that I can see.
Okay, excellent. Moving on, public hearings and meetings. Public hearing continued from December 13th, 2021. Notice of intent filed by Lathrop Community Inc. at 100 Bassett Brook Drive, map 104, lot 2, for improvements to an existing trail network, Mass DEP file number 1510315.
Yeah, so I did reach out to my main contact. I know at the last meeting we asked for more of an update, and I have yet to receive one. I'm going to reach out some other ways that I have as options, but otherwise, I guess just continue if we can.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue? Actually, before I request that, Cassie, do you know when this notice of intent was originally filed with the commission? Is that
when it was originally filed?
Is that something?
Hold on a second, I can pull that up.
Thanks. I'm thinking of the 2-year kind of lapse of action. And I don't think we're anywhere near that, but I'm just curious when that needs to be a consideration.
It was open, the first meeting minutes were from June 14th, 2021.
Okay.
Around that time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to continue the Lathrop NOI public hearing to our January 24th, 2022 meeting at 6 p.m.?
Motion to continue to January 24th at 6 p.m.
For a second. Roll call vote. Yusa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering, Inc. on behalf of Jeffrey Wolak? Wolak or Wolak? You're muted, sir.
Wallach.
Wallach, thank you. Care of Our Lady of the Valley Parish at 109 Everett Street, map 146, lot 1, for resource area delineation, Mass DEP file number 1510318.
Lisa, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lisa Narkowitz for Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering. We filed the ANRAD for a piece of property located on 109 Everett Street to determine, verify the wetland boundaries, and the boundaries were flagged by GZA, and Dan Nitschke's here to discuss any questions pertaining to the delineation. And I can put the plan up if you want to see the plan.
I just made you a co-host. You can go ahead.
Did that work? Let's see. No.
Not seeing it yet.
Okay.
There we go.
So it abuts the Lower Mill Pond and the St. Bridget's Cemetery. And I don't know if you have any questions pertaining to the delineation.
Well, I'll just jump in real quick. Itchy from GZA helping out Heritage Survey on this. The delineation is essentially a bordering vegetated wetland. Primarily, as you look at this image, would be sort of the southern side of the property. Yeah, along there. Thanks, Lisa. And then that transitions till we get over to where there's open water right about there. And then it becomes bank resource all the way around until we come over to a culvert over by Everett Street. There are a couple little BVWs that are on that side as well, but they're fairly small. As you can see by the topography, it's very steeply incised property, flat on the surface or relatively level on the surface with deeply sloping down toward the area. Mainly Boxford silt loam we were getting for soils at the top, which are not considered hydric, but obviously when you get down closer to the water, you have all the hydrology of the pond in there. That's supporting those little fringe or shelf wetlands that are right along the edge. And then that's basically bank and BVW is our resource areas we've defined out there.
Is this a parcel that we spoke about, I don't know, a few months ago? Just hypothetically speaking.
Lisa?
I'm not sure.
This is the same parcel that was brought before the commission. Yeah, more about it, just informally asking about what could potentially be done here. Though any development is not part of this proposal, but did you come before us before informally?
Excellent. Thank you.
I think Cassie was out there, did a site visit a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? About 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I did do the site visit. I don't know if the commissioners want to see the images from that before getting into other questions.
That would be helpful, I guess. And then I guess I'm curious about when the delineation was performed and if you could speak to that and the nature of the resource areas. But Cassie, if you can tell us about your site visit.
Okay, let's see. So let me. So the site visit was done on December 13th, 2021. And, this is the flat area above, kind of extending on. That over there, Mill Pond, all the way down is straight ahead. And then behind you would be the road in this image. And then it drops off on the right side and on the left. More of the upper area. This is kind of the area along the road that's a little more vegetated. And then this culvert is down here somewhere. And you can see the flagging kind of coming up the slope. I asked when the delineation was done during the site visit. I think, Dan, you had said in May?
In May, yeah.
2021?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the right side. If you were looking at the road behind you, and extends on to Lower Mill Pond. Kind of that view again. And then there's sometimes there's these little cuts into the slope. The flat area again. This is looking down right at the end of the property. Lower Mill Pond is to the right. And then it inlets again to the other side. Again, down to Lower Mill Pond. It's kind of the point where that inlet starts to meet. And then back up. There's the cemetery in the background there.
And that's to the south of the property we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, yep. There's the cemetery. Back at that. Lower Mill Pond again.
So based on this, if I could go back one image, please.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So on that image right there, you can see the water obvious, but what's really going on when you get closer to that is there's a small shelf, probably 8 to 10 feet wide, where you can see where the water level is higher or periodically gets that high. So we flagged that upper edge. We didn't flag the edge of the water. We flagged on that offset because it's obvious that the water level goes higher for a period of time. I don't know if it's historic, but it does have, it's sort of that first observable break and slope sort of description that you'll see in the bank definition. And we felt that that was more appropriate than where the water's edge was.
In that area, you're defining it as BVW, not bank.
Yes, most of this was BVW, exactly, yep. Yeah, the whole finger, if you look just the little hemlock just on the left-hand side of the image, there's sort of a finger that goes up the slope there. And that's all BVW draining down to the water. But since it was offset, Melissa, we did call it a BVW, not a bank. When the line was right on the water, which clearly looked like the high water line, more on the northern, or what I guess in this case would be sort of the eastern side of this peninsula, that flagging was more on the water line because there wasn't that shelf effect. You didn't see that over there.
So are there flags that are more, that are actually like bank, than BVW?
More than on the north side, facing right into the middle of the pond, and on the east side of this peninsula is where the delineation is essentially right on the water. That's the high water line of the bank line.
So what flag numbers are those? I don't have it. I'm not sharing my screen, but I have the BVW report pulled up. So the wetland
The numbers
description.
in my head. Lisa, could you tell us what those
I'm
side?
trying to look at do you want the plan shared again or?
Sure.
Okay.
Either or. So in the delineation report, the wetlands are described as BVW1 flags A1 through A15, and BVW2 flags A15 through A61. And I'm just wondering which of those, where and which of those flags are bank as opposed to BVW.
Let's see.
You gonna bring the image up, Lisa?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you see it? Yep.
Can
Yeah.
you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So
This is
zoom
my
into
first
the.
time doing the,
You're doing
Yes.
just fine.
So go ahead and slide it up.
Here you go.
Slide the image up a little bit if you can. There you go. So there's your A1s down in there. That's your BVW.
Okay, so you're and that area is, what are the dominant characteristics of that area, Dan?
Mainly red maple. There was some ilex in there, some winterberry, hydric soil everywhere. This is where it has A1 and A2, there's water coming up out of the ground, or not coming up out. It just bleeds out. So above that is the Boxford silt loam soil. I forget which soil type it is that's at the A1, A2, but it's basically hydrology at about 3 inches below grade. It's reduced soils all the way down. That's basically a swale. We'll call it a drainage swale. All the way down to you hit to the water line. Right. And then there's your 15, A15, and then following the shoreline, still more BVW there.
Okay.
Edge of the water is off that line a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And in some cases, it gets a little close, more coincident, sort of our flags with the water. But for the most part, it's still staying off the edge. And then you get this little finger you see there. We call it, they put the label swale in there. That's a natural drain way.
Mm-hmm. And those areas didn't have the same characteristics as the feature identified by flags A1 through A15.
Correct.
They don't have skunk cabbage.
Actually, some of this does have some, you could see some of the space in there for the skunk cabbage, This particular one you're looking at right now, I think had a bit more in it than the one to the right, which is showing up as A52, 53, 54, those sort of numbers. But that A48 through 45, that had some skunk cabbage in it. Most of it on that side didn't have much skunk cabbage. It's fairly abrupt.
So I guess other than in the vicinity of A43 through A45, are there any, those are where the resource area boundary appears to be closest to the edge of water?
I would agree, yep.
And so
They'd be coincident with bank, right?
Okay.
So it's mainly BVW with just a small area bank.
And then I have a question, Lisa, if you were to pan over to the flag A55, what are those appear to be additional flags up gradient? What are those?
I think those were supposed to be frozen. They were not supposed or misplaced on the plan, so those shouldn't be there.
So just erroneous marks, right, Lisa?
Yeah, yeah.
Cassie, when you were out there, was there any persistent vegetation that you could observe?
I mean, certainly not skunk cabbage, just because it was cold and this is on December 13th. So besides the trees, it wasn't really much in the way of vegetation that I was really able to identify.
I mean, these fingers are emergent wetlands. The tree species are really around the edge of those. They're not, we didn't really have any trees inside. Mainly, it was, you know, at this time of the year, primarily senesced plants. Some goldenrod in there. Like I said, we saw some winter berries in there. But like I said, I did see some space of skunk cabbage in that middle section, the A46 area.
Sure. I'm scrolling through the report, looking for photos of these swales or swale-like features. Do you know if it, Cassie, do you have photos of any of those locations that we could see?
From the site visit or from the springtime?
Either.
Okay, yeah, I have them from the site visit, and otherwise I only have what was included in the report. So let me share my screen. Okay, do you want to see near A55 and these swales on this northern edge first, or?
Yeah, if you could, that would be great.
That's at the beginning. Let's see. Okay, these are the flat areas, and then yeah, so we started. This is probably up near where generally A55 kind of is, and then it's kind of traveling along towards the pond from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where there was visible water, and the culvert is somewhere around here that goes under the road.
Mm-hmm. Where is this?
This should be in the same area. The road is not far to the right here. It's just kind of panned slightly to the left along the northern edge.
I guess, is it possible, Lisa or Dan, to show us where this feature is on that site plan?
Yes, I believe so. You bring the plan up, Lisa?
I'm trying. Sorry.
No problem. Right. No problem.
Well, Lisa's bringing that up. Cassie, can you confirm the butters were notified?
Yeah, I did not provide, I can print out the mailing list, the labels and from our mailing program, but I did not provide the certification that they went out what we did. on
Do
the-
you have the green cards or certificates of mail logbook page?
I can get the log page. I don't have it right now.
Okay.
So Dan, I'm not sure where that picture was taken. Do you?
My recollection is we're looking right at it. So the ponded area is the dash line for your water level. The stream channel itself is just off the property line. It's difficult. You can't see because they didn't survey all the way over that far. So this area that's sort of like just east of flags 48, 49, 51 in that zone is the water you were seeing in the image. And then it's really sort of a pool in this area because the stream channel itself is just off the property above the property line there, just east of that property line. And my guess is it's a little bit on the impounded side because the beaver activity that's going on in there. But if it didn't have water, it would certainly be just a large BVW next to the stream channel.
Yeah, and if you look at the next picture, kind of like, it's not necessarily just like a pond, it kind of continues on towards the lower mill pond.
But does it have a surface water connection to Lower Mill Pond, or is that area of impoundment isolated from Lower Mill Pond by BVW? So not really isolated, but.
It's connected. Well, what I saw was it connected all the way through. There's surface water all the way through.
Can we go back to the photos of those swale-like areas? And Cassie, if you could do your best to identify what flag numbers we're viewing?
Yep. So this is what we were looking at originally. And then we went back to the plan. And so this is probably around, what were we saying, 48, 49, I think. And then
between 46 to 51, right?
And then this is just to the looking to the lower numbers. So up this Lower Mill Pond up ahead, and you can kind of see, tried to capture this continuation.
To the north, right. Yeah, that second image, you can see the bigger body of water in the distance, but this finger goes all the way down and it's connected by this water.
And let's see, when I advance on, this is one of the swale areas, just in detail.
And these swales don't have culverts at the up gradient ends, right? They're just, it's superficial, whatever superficial flow occurs.
It's superficial erosion, yes.
Yeah, I didn't see any structures while I was out there.
Yeah, no, it's just from erosion because of the steepness of the slope.
Okay, so this is working our way down to the lower numbers in the flagging. This is a bit of a clearer picture. And again, you can see some more of those swales.
And if in this image, right in the dead center, if you look right in the middle, there's a very thin line of vegetation that goes towards the shoreline out into that marsh area. That's a beaver dam. And there's several of those that are sort of buried under the water in there from different periods. Yeah, right there. Thank you, Cassie.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was evidence of trees that had been taken down by beavers as well. Swale detail. There's the beaver dam again. So we just kind of came forward a little bit.
And right in this image, you can see that water comes away from the main body and kind of comes up that slope a little bit. So that would account for one of our V-shaped BVWs that we show, or the V-shaped wetlands we're showing on that east side.
This is back up at the top. So this is looking at the south side now. And this is at like the point, like outermost to Lower Mill Pond. And then this is where the inlet on the south side kind of begins.
Okay.
This is looking straight out from the point. Evidence of beaver activity.
Is that beaver or chainsaw?
That one might be part. There was definitely beaver. That might be chainsaw, but there was all kinds of.
The Husqvarna beaver.
This is looking back a little bit. That's the point again, and more to the right would be the northern inlet.
Okay.
So now we're getting back over the south again. So the rest of these images will be towards the south.
All right. Thank you. So Cassie, do you have any other comments or observations from your site visit?
No, not really. Again, you know, without a lot of vegetation, it's a little harder for me to say much more about it. We didn't really talk much about the any proposed future plans because it's not really
Right.
what this is about. So,
right. So my concern is just procedurally, it's the middle of winter. So this is a tough time for a commission to review a boundary. I realize this one's pretty well defined by topography.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest that administratively, and we keep the hearing open to allow for submittal of the proof of a butter notification. Lisa, if that's documentation you can provide to us, because we need to make sure we have that in place for our records. And then I'll open it up to other commissioners if they have any questions, comments, observations they'd like to share.
I have a clarification question first. On the plan itself, it says the delineation was conducted in January of 2021, but I believe I heard May at another point.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I saw that too. That's not correct.
Okay. And then I was trying to remember, I know that we looked at the area between the south side of the property and the cemetery when we were considering another issue a year or two ago. And I thought we had defined a stream channel through there, but I can't remember. I'm just trying to think about where I thought in prior conversations informally that we had expected to see some riverfront on here. And I'm just thinking about where that would have been and making sure that we're not missing anything there.
Cassie, have you compared this to the previous delineation the commission saw for the area of flags A1 through A15?
do you mean as part of the preliminary, like informal discussion, or that enforcement order from?
As part of the previous enforcement action.
Okay, let me pull that up real quick. In terms of previous discussions, potentially having riverfront area, just for Julie's point, I'm not sure. I do remember that as well, though, talking about potential riverfront area. It might have been that we just weren't sure what would be there, and we're saying that to err on caution, but I'm not sure. So let me pull up with the enforcement order, though, real quick. That was not, and this enforcement order wasn't for 109 Everett, it was for the St. Bridget's Cemetery next door, also to the south, I believe.
And while you're looking for that, Cassie, I think, Dan, that you mentioned that there is a stream channel just off the sheet to the north.
Yes, on the US, yes, it shows. I think it does show a perennial stream coming into that area from across the street. But once it gets into that pond, there's no more riverine characteristics.
Would we expect, though, to see the arc off the end of that stream come into this property at all?
No, if being an end point, there shouldn't be an arc. It would be parallel to the riverfront up to the point it stops. The arc, the 200-foot arc, is at the beginning or at the head.
Okay, no.
Right. Yeah, good point though. Yep. It just ends parallel to the end point. Yeah.
I have the plan. If you guys want me to pull it up, hold on a second. So this is from, just for clarification, this is from a enforcement order that the commission pursued at the abutting property. So the property in question for this ANRAD is here to the right. not in its entirety, but this is a detail of that area at the end, and this kind of remediation that was done there in the corner. I'm going to zoom in.
Yeah, so it's that long green finger, I believe, is we just did the one side of it because of where the property is located.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't notice a channel in there. Yeah, we didn't notice any obvious channel. I'm sure when it rains, flow goes down that sort of that gradient, but I didn't see a defined channel.
Yeah, I remember discussing, and I couldn't remember where we had wound up with it, but it does look like it's just mapped as wetlands through there.
Okay.
And the only stream that's shown as perennial is the one to the north.
Yes. Or to like east, it's north and east of the property.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it on my side, Melissa.
Okay. So I guess to Julie's point, and I apologize if I glossed over the response, but would we, from where that stream is mapped as perennial, how long is the culvert it's in, and would we expect to see any element, any portion of that riverfront area on the drawing? I recognize that it's off property, but the riverfront area is a resource area itself that we would.
Right. What we're seeing out there is because of the large body of water, you don't have continuous riverine characteristics. You have the stream come in from the right-hand side from Everett Street, and then it empties in this large body of water, and there's no characteristics. We did look in May, watching for vegetation moving in that earlier flow period. We didn't see that. So that's why we feel that the riverfront would end where it comes out of the pipe, and then it turns into land under water bodies and waterways at that point.
Right. So I guess what I'm just trying to clarify is, well, first of all, is that culvert more than 200 feet in length? And where would that 200 feet measure off the end of the pipe into the subject?
Good point. I have to defer to Lisa on that because I don't know the orientation. I don't even see the culvert.
Yeah, I don't see that it was located in our survey. So, and unfortunately, Mark Reed was the one who had gone out and done all the site visit and stuff. So I'm unfamiliar. I'm sorry with where the culvert is and how long it is.
My guess is it's less than 200 feet wide because it probably just goes under Everett Street.
Right.
So then at that point, Lisa, what Melissa's saying is the riverfront would be at the discharge point of the pipe, and you'd have to run a perpendicular line off of that.
And we're talking about some sort of culvert that's coming off over here. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. It would be over by you like 144.6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's roughly in that location.
And it would parallel, the culvert itself would be the bank of that stream through the crossing. So the 200-foot line would come back paralleling that pipe for the purposes of the regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it does depend on where the end of that pipe is.
Now, is this not the pipe you're referring to? I don't know if you can see my arrow. No.
I can, I think, if you, yep.
But that's just concrete.
It's my mouse. I'm sorry, but I can try to get where it needs to be.
I can hear
the mouse.
So,
catch basin.
not the catch basin, moving it back, there's a 15-foot
Oh, yeah.
EMP right there. That looks like the end of, but that's on the opposite side of the street. No, it's not.
That doesn't, I'm having trouble making sense of that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Because it looks like those grades in there are typical roadbed grades.
And I think that's what most of us who've driven that stretch of Everett Street recall, that the road has a very steep embankment.
I'll have to verify that pipe and see if the drafter missed the opposite side of the pipe.
I mean, you could,
that
yeah, you
it
could,
was located.
that might be the inlet because the other, I mean, you could see the telephone poles right on the road line close to the property. So that's definitely the edge of the physical road.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay. So it is on the
That looks like
correct
it's on the
side.
uphill upstream side, but something's odd with that.
It almost looks like the road label is not on the road, but that it's too far to the right of the page.
Right, it's within the edge of pavement and the roadway right of way, maybe?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's within the right of way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, are there any other comments from commissioners? Are there any comments from members of the public? Okay, so the commission, I would like to see the commission hold the hearing open pending receipt of proof, the abutter notification documentation. Doesn't need to be an affidavit because that's built into the form, but the certified mail or certificates of mail, whichever you used, that's what we need. And then clarification of the extended riverfront area in this corner of the property.
Okay.
And if I could add, I would recommend if we're going to make some adjustments is get rid of those erroneous markers that are on that.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
in the future, that doesn't become a question.
Yeah. And I will also update the date of the delineation. And
Thank you.
actually, it states in your report that it was on April 19th.
April, all right.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, without any further comment or input from the public, is there a motion to continue to January 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m.?
Motion to continue to January 24th at 6 p.m.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Yusa,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Whittemore,
Aye.
motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Right, moving back to our agenda.
I have a request to take an item out of order for
Which item would this be?
item 7L. It's for the 6973 Loudville property. They had a question about just clarification on some of the pre-construction requirements and seeking approval from the commission for how they've interpreted them. And I believe Sophia is here to speak to that, if we can take it out of order.
Is there a motion to take agenda item 7L out of agenda order?
A motion to take 7L out of order.
In a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Yusa,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7L, R. Levesque Associates, Inc., 69 and 73 Loudville Road, Mass. DEP file number 1510309 for new 18-unit housing development, maps 140 and 139, lots 28, 29, and 11. Good evening.
Evening, this is for the record, Sophia Bitsis from R. Levesque Associates, here on behalf of the applicant. There were a few items that had come up the last time that we were before the commission, and some pre-construction conditions that we had sent a letter in kind of addressing. So we just wanted to take a moment and make sure, like Cassie said, that we've interpreted them correctly. And there's also a request to be made in going through them. So through the chair, if I could share my screen, I can kind of go through the letter a little. Okay, perfect. So let me see.
Yeah, I've made you a co-host, so let me know if it gives you a
Perfect.
chance.
Awesome. let's see, with any luck, you guys see the cover letter that was submitted, dated December 22nd?
Mhm.
Perfect. So pre-construction condition 16F has to do with a final construction set drawings to be provided. So we are preparing those at this time, pending, of course, the outcome of this hearing and determination, to identify both the stockpile locations, which are going to be shown between units 2 and 3 behind the existing dwelling that's on the parcel currently. Item 16G has to do with the sequencing plan for phases. So this project's actually not going to be completed in phases, so no phasing will occur. It is understood that the completion of the stormwater management plan shall be completed and stabilized prior to any paving and binder applications for the proposed road work. Catch basins, insets will be set, binder grade, so on and so forth. So no phasing will be part of this project. As for the statement signed by the permittee, I believe we had attached that affidavit to this filing, so you guys should have that as well. Item number 17 is the one that we have, I guess, maybe a request. So the condition indicated that the permanent monuments had to be 25 feet apart, or 25-foot intervals. So we were suggesting to do the rebar with green conservation caps to be installed at the 4 vertices above grade and no greater than 100 feet, as 25 feet is kind of excessive. We had another project that we worked on, and they became kind of a nuisance. And we just have found through experience that just 25 feet is way too close. So we were hoping that we could do them every 100 feet and at the vertices as far as monumentation goes. And then the last condition that we just wanted to clarify was that Carlos Goncalves of G&G Construction is going to be the site contractor and has also been nominated as the project environmental monitor. So hopefully that is okay with the commission as well. So with that being said, I'll put it out to the commission on their take.
So I guess I would, working backwards from item 23, I would request some sort of summary of Mr. Gonzalez's qualification to serve as the environmental monitor. And I will express and open up to the commission for discussion that I have some concerns about the contractor being their own environmental monitor. Does anyone have any comments? And that would be a comment I would have regardless of the contractor and the project.
No, I agree. I think it's always helpful to have another set of eyes looking at the erosion controls and making sure that everything is intact.
Can someone refresh my memory? I'm assuming this project exceeds the 1 acre threshold and is required to have coverage under the construction general permit. Is that correct? Was the commission provided with a construction period pollution prevention plan, or is a SWIP pending?
I
They did get a stormwater permit. Oh, you can go ahead, Sophia.
Oh, no, go ahead, Kat, go by all means.
I think that we have not yet received the SWIP, but we should, I believe that's a pre-construction requirement.
Okay,
Yep,
so
so
the
I know
SWIP will serve.
Yeah, correct. We were just waiting for Carlos to certify to it. So it has been prepared and filed. He just had to certify it. So I can get an update to Cassie on that tomorrow morning.
Okay. And if you could get some summary of Mr. Gonzalez's qualifications.
Yep, I can also do that as well.
Pending commission review and approval.
Sure.
Moving up to item 17. I would have to revisit the meeting minutes, but I think there was probably some bit of discussion on the distance between the monumentation. I think 100 feet is quite far. Also, if you could provide a detail or a photograph or some other representation of rebar with green conservation caps as they're intended to be used for this purpose, that would be beneficial to the commission's deliberation.
Yep, we have used them previously at a project. I believe it was in South Hadley, similar situation. So we can definitely, I can take pictures of those if I don't have them already and get them over to Cassie.
Thank you. And I think, again, for discussion amongst the commission, I'm not comfortable from my own perspective going from 25 feet to 100 feet. I would actually request a site visit where we can get a feel for this on the landscape itself. I don't know how other people feel about that.
I would agree. I can't remember what the layout is exactly of the lots, but I'm guessing that if we did every 100 feet, that there may be lots that didn't even have any markers, and I think that would be inappropriate for what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so by the end of this discussion, we should discuss a follow-up site visit where we could take a tape and walk it out. Sophia, if you would be so kind as to scroll up to the next page, the previous page.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so
this had to do with the affidavit, and I believe, I thought we had attached it. So we had done an affidavit under the order of conditions for compliance. And that has been signed by both petitioners and the contractor.
and those are verified PDF signatures, is that what that-
Yep, they're dot loop verified. So yeah, they're certified PDF signatures.
Okay. We could go back to the first page of the letter then.
Perfect.
Pre-concern, project concern. So understood. And if I'm not mistaken, do any members of the commission recall relative to the stormwater management system, is there a requirement that the city engineer be present at certain intervals?
That is a part of the stormwater permit, does have language to that effect, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Sophia, is that familiar to you as well?
I believe so, yes. There's certain inspections that will be required along the way.
Okay, and that will be front-ended?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that you understand the final set of construction drawings with the stockpile locations. If that could also be provided to the commission.
Absolutely. We were just waiting to see if we had the markers where we were going to place them. We're going to be 25 feet and at the vertices, or 100 feet and at the vertices, or 50, or whatever was decided. So we didn't want to issue a construction set until we had determined that.
Okay. So we should look to schedule that site visit sooner than later.
That would be appreciated.
But not tomorrow.
No, it's going to be freezing tomorrow.
Cassie, what's your availability to schedule this site visit?
Hold on a second. It's pretty open. Hold on. Let's see. So the rest of this week I can do in the mornings on Wednesday and Thursday as well. So anytime before 2 p.m. on Wednesday, definitely. On Thursday, I can do, the only thing in the morning I have a commitment is from 8:30 to 9:30.
Okay.
And then another thing from 1 to 2.
Perfect. So we could do like a 10 to noon on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely.
Hypothetically. Okay, perfect. Let me reach out to, it'll probably be Ryan or Rob who meets you out there. So I will circle back with you in the morning, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah. We can finalize it on email if that works for everyone else.
Perfect. Awesome.
Are any other members of the commission available at in that time period? Jay?
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay. Anyone else? I know.
No.
Thank you. That does not work with my Swiss cheese schedule, but thank you, Jay.
Michael? I might be available.
Okay.
Planning Wednesday or Thursday.
Thank you.
I'll be sure to email you all when we nail down the time.
Perfect.
Sure.
Excellent. All right.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. And Cassie, I'll be in touch sooner than later to get the site visit scheduled, as well as the qualification SWIP status and all the photos of the rebar and what they look like with the cap. So that way the commission can review that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'll keep an eye out for it.
Perfect. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Okay, I have another request to take another item out of order.
Which item?
General business item 8D, B, excuse me, 8B.
8B. Okay.
Ordinance review.
All right. Motion to take agenda item 8B out of order.
Motion to take agenda item 8B out of order.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Visa,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye. Sorry, my clicker's stuck there.
Ryan,
Aye.
Whittemore.
Nay, I mean, aye.
Motion carries. General business item 8B, draft solar ordinance review. Good evening. Would you unmute and introduce yourself for the record?
Good evening. This is Curtis Weeman from the Easthampton Planning Department, representing the planning board here, but really I'm representing the Solar Ordinance Working Group, which includes several members, some of whom may have just voted nay to let me speak this evening. I'm here to present our first draft of the Easthampton Solar Ordinance, specifically to the Conservation Commission, because it imagines an expanded role for the Conservation Commission in the future permitting of large-scale solar sites. And I wanted to solicit input from y'all and get some feedback as to whether you guys agree with this potential direction and whether it seems like something the commission would want to take up. So with that said, am I already co-host? I'm punched in at my own Zoom, Cassie, so I would need to be given it.
Okay, I gave it to you. You should be good to go.
Wonderful. Okay, which of these things? Yes.
We don't have a copy of this, correct?
No, you have a draft copy of the ordinance and a draft copy of this PowerPoint that I'm using tonight, except that I added one slide later this afternoon to help elaborate on the Conservation Commission's role.
You should be able to get to it from the ongoing project document and potentially one of the emails that I sent.
I didn't see it on the last email, that's all.
Oh, okay.
It's in general business, but it's not highlighted to be able to link to anything.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'll look at other things.
Okay.
So there's two things before us right now. There's the major ordinance itself, which I provided in the interest of completeness, but it's currently a very hashed up mess. It's currently done with track changes on, and it imagines a lot of dramatic changes from our existing solar ordinance as proposed under section 7.3 of the Easthampton zoning ordinances. So it has a dramatic number of changes that move from the table of principal uses, including a new overlay district and a whole bunch of changes to the solar, the ordinance as it currently exists. As a result, rather than review that document in its totality, I have this PowerPoint to kind of summarize the main talking points with some specific points specifically for the Conservation Commission. So what have we been doing for the past 6 months? The biggest change is that solar as it exists in the Easthampton zoning ordinance today has a cutoff threshold at which solar becomes large-scale solar and therefore subject to a special permit approval. And that cutoff is 10,000 square feet. That cutoff is also agnostic to the location of those solar panels. So it could be rooftop solar, carport solar, like we saw at River Valley Co-op, or other similar solar projects, regardless of their impact on green space, agricultural land, or any other areas we'd want to preserve in the city. As a result, we wanted to take an approach to the solar ordinance that both relaxed permitting to allow small-scale solar development and tightened permitting to try to limit the development of Easthampton's remaining agricultural, green space, and forest land to preserve some of those elements of Easthampton's existing natural environment. The easiest way we could figure out how to do this was to divide solar into 3 subcategories, use groups 1, 2, and 3 in ascending order of impact. Use group 1 is minimal impact. These are backyard solar projects, residential accessory solar, and rooftop solar. Note that rooftop is any scale. So conceivably, if I have an enormous factory and I want to cover the entire top in solar panels, I can do so. That rooftop solar would be allowed by right. It would need no special permit from the Easthampton Planning Board and no additional permitting from any other body except for the building commissioner as appropriate. Then use group 2 imagines a couple of different low impact solar projects that are still large enough or present loopholes for large scale solar that we wanted to still have some government over them. This includes ground mounted impervious solar, so solar mounted directly on existing impervious surfaces as a means of remediation. Dual use agricultural solar, so solar panels over with elevated solar panels with shrubs or grazing land underneath. It's currently governed by Massachusetts Department of Agriculture. And what I basically call small scale solar, so solar under 10,000 square feet that is developed on green space. Each of these is relatively low impact and avoids some of the most impactful solar projects like Beacon Solar and similar, but they still need some amount of government just to make sure that we're not allowing someone to say parcel together a large scale solar development over a bunch of lots that each have only 10,000 square feet or similar. Last but not least, we've introduced use group 3, which would be special permits for large scale solar mounted on green fields primarily. This is any solar project over 10,000 square feet of new impervious surface on green fields or new solar panel surfacing on green fields. And we've included new additional permitting requirements for this, including disallowing it in the area of a newly proposed solar overlay district, which I'll get to in a minute. Oh, just summarized all of this. So it would have been nice to have that slide up just a second ago. Sorry about that. The biggest thing I wanted to point out in addition is, the goal is, like I was saying, to support minimally impactful solar, to allow small scale greenfield solar, but to govern it a little bit, and then to protect our agricultural wetlands and forest lands for development and adverse impacts. We're specifically interested in governing solar for this, not because we particularly hate solar, but because solar has unique protections from the state under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3, which says that solar is uniquely allowed to develop without additional special permit guidance. And so it is incumbent on our planning board to ensure that we have up-to-date regulations to match with the state's regulations as they exist right now, and to protect our natural spaces, because we've seen a huge boom of solar development on green fields over the last 10 years. An estimate by Clark University is about 50% of large-scale solar in western Massachusetts has gone in on previously green fields, wooded fields, or agricultural land. Conservation Commission review. So this is one of the biggest elements of change, and I didn't really bring it up before. The Conservation Commission will have an expanded role, especially in the use group 3 solar, that large scale special permitted solar. And it's linked in a couple of different ways. We've clarified the traditional transmittal that we provide every time a new special permit is submitted, in order to ask the Conservation Commission for specific feedback. That might sound very presumptuous, and it's not intended to be. It's intended to give you the weapons that you need to do the review that you want to do. I understand that the Conservation Commission operates largely in governing the stormwater standards of the city, Section 1276 of the city ordinances, and the Wetlands Protection Acts. And I respect the Commission has very much not wanted to overreach its boundaries. And so the planning board can ask for specific commentary when we do our traditional transferal from other departments. Every time we get a special permit, I send the plans and narratives and documents to Cassie. And if it's a relevant project for the Conservation Commission's review, she either provides a letter to me that says, yes, this is not in a jurisdictional area, or, this is in a jurisdictional area and the commission will need to review it. In this particular case, use group 3 solar automatically goes before the commission. The commission may invite the applicant to come meet with them, and you'll go over a couple of details. What details are those? So first things first, you'll have new required plans as part of any new special permit submittal. As you're probably aware, special permit submittals have a landscape plan. Those landscape plans are very much intent on what does the landscape look after you're done? How are you buffering the site? How are you installing new plantings? Kind of imagining every project to have a similar end state in which you want to have a certain amount of attractive vegetation to buffer the project from public view. This is not usually the case for large-scale solar, where we're primarily concerned with what's the total loss and what kind of vegetation is being cleared. There's a difference between clearing a couple of shrubby bushes downtown as compared to a bunch of old growth forest in some of our agricultural land. So we've asked future proponents under use group 3 to identify all trees with 20-inch DBH and to provide a forest type analysis plan that identifies habitats, wetlands, and stands of old growth trees in the area of the proposed project. Now, in addition to these plans, we've now specifically included language under the zoning ordinance that would say the Conservation Commission should furnish a letter within 35 days of receipt of this transmittal from the planning department that speaks to a couple of different things. The adequacy of efforts to protect wetlands, the adequacy of efforts to protect habitats and areas of large old stand trees, that the project adequately mitigates runoff and sedimentation, that it complies with UMass pollinator safe certification at the certified level or higher, or an equivalent the commission feels is appropriate, and that it proposes compliant impervious surface. You can then, I've even drafted like a form letter in which you can basically just say, you know, hey, we find this, that, and the other thing. Then that letter goes back to the planning board. And in order to match your commitment to additionally reviewing it, I've generated new findings that the planning board has to have. So for any special permit decision, the planning board has to make certain mandatory findings. In this case, the planning board's mandatorily obliged to find that they've received that letter and have considered that input, but they don't necessarily need to decide in the same lines. So one of the ways in which we're hoping to dodge claims that we're over-regulating this use or demanding an additional permit for solar on top of the existing site plan or special permit before the planning board is we're hoping that the commission has an empowered advisory role, but not a whole nother permit that the solar applicant would need to go through. I specifically mentioned this. Can I go back? Previous. I specifically mentioned this because of this last point here. We, the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3, that governs solar, agricultural, religious, and other uses. It includes a proviso that says you can't unreasonably regulate these uses. And sometimes certain decisions can be viewed as unreasonable regulation. This is something that we're considering very seriously, and it may lead to the tabling of this concept in general. But as long as it's still part of the draft, I wanted to mention it to everybody here. And to discuss why we're not just saying, okay, you need an additional permit from the Conservation Commission. Dual use solar, I spoke about this a little bit already. This is really more for the Agricultural Commission when I speak to them. This is allowed by special permit on existing, by site plan review on existing agricultural parcels. It allows them to potentially adaptively reuse, but it prevents the kind of like total clearance and transformation into large-scale solar that we saw on 50 Florence. It's to provide flexibility to our farmers and to give them as maximum opportunities for those farms to economically succeed, because I know it's not a traditionally profitable sector, and we want to make sure that those farms are successful for the long-term health and culture of Easthampton. Last but not least, okay, so the limited solar overlay district. As commissioners may know, we have an existing watershed. It's like a watershed protection district, which governs areas directly within the floodplain overlay district. This expands on that and identifies buffers around all of our DEP wetlands and USGS rivers and streams, as well as our NHESP priority and estimated habitats and existing vernal pools, to create a new comprehensive layer in which no large-scale solar would be allowed. You could still do the small scale and medium scale solar, use groups 1 and use group 2, and you could still do dual use solar or impervious mounted solar or building mounted solar out to 1 million square feet, as long as it's all mounted on a building or impervious surface or in that dual use category. As long as you're not clearing new green fields for it, it's all game. But the problem is we're going to disallow large scale solar within that area. Projects that would have disallowed, and I'm just using Beacon because it was relatively recent, that would have disallowed Beacon solar from being developed as it falls within the proposed area up here. This area in green is the proposed overlay district. It's a little blobby right now because it follows our USGS wetlands and streams, but this is the ultimate goal for what we want to see protected. There's a few carve outs for municipal properties that are on brownfields. That's another thing we mentioned too, sorry. If it's a contaminated property like the dump, it's subject to development with only a site plan review, so long as the proponent can demonstrate that that project is in fact a DEP identified brownfield. So, long story short, I want to go back to the Conservation Commission stuff. So, the real big thing that I want to review here, and then I promise I'll turn the floor over to other people, is that the idea is that the planning board values the Conservation Commission as a partner in reviewing projects whose primary impact is really its ecological impact. The planning board tends to be just jurisdictionally kind of pro-development, and the planning board tends to think of the Conservation Commission as being kind of the nature experts. I know that that's broad strokes, but bear with me here. The idea is, by giving additional criteria to the Conservation Commission to bring to bear on these kind of projects, and by at least making sure the planning board at least reviews that commentary, we provide the Conservation Commission additional power to comment on these projects and their potential ecological impacts. With all that being said, I open up the floor, and if anybody has any commentary, I welcome hearing.
I'll just jump in and add, because I was part of the group that worked on this, that we, I think that for most of what we would see come to us for review under these new rules, we would be looking at the project anyways, because there's a high likelihood that there's wetlands somewhere on the site. But this would allow us to comment on things that happen outside of the technically jurisdictional areas, and to ask that some of the conservation practices that we're looking for in buffer zone, for instance, could be extended in other parts of the site. So that's one of the things that we were trying to accomplish here, is to have our hands be a little less tied on those areas that aren't technically under the WPA.
Okay. I have questions. And since we're on this slide, I guess I'm curious about why the DBH of trees to be removed is being limited to 20 inches. That's a pretty significant DBH. Was there discussion of that during the development of the criteria?
There was no substantial discussion of it, but I'll tell you where I got that. This is more or less a carbon copy of the standards for significant trees in Northampton, to which I confess fair ignorance as to what constitutes one type of tree's significance versus another. I am therefore completely amenable to amending that number. The way I read the deliberations from the Northampton amendments to their ordinance to create both the Northampton created two tree protection ordinances. One is the literal tree protection ordinance, in which they lay out the criteria for a tree to be considered a significant tree. And the other is a specific requirement for large scale solar, which says you have to identify and protect 20-inch DBH trees. I read the deliberations that went into that, and they specifically said, this is really to identify old growth forest and prevent it from being cleared. I remember hearing from folks during our deliberations that there might not be too much old growth forest that's still subject to development. But
I guess I was always under the impression, especially in the valley, that we don't have any true old growth.
Right.
That the true old growth is very limited across the state. Thank you, ancestors. But and also, and perhaps Julie or someone else is more familiar with this than I am, but I guess my understanding of what constitutes a significant tree depends on what is typical and therefore exceptional for that species. So some trees just naturally grow larger than others, meaning I understand the goal. I'm a little concerned that 20 inches is too broad or too large a diameter, and that this would actually result in the loss of stands of older, mature stands of trees that just don't have that threshold diameter.
Is there a source you might consider that I should look at for a slightly more holistic definition for significant trees?
almost want to let me dig a little bit. I know I had to look into it for a project in another municipality at one point in time. And I apologize, it was probably 10 years ago. So
No, I didn't expect you to have a citation off the top of your head, but I'll whenever you can feel
That's
free
just
to
because
email
you
me.
don't know Melissa.
thanks, Julie.
She'll make us sit here in silence while she looks for 20 minutes to
I
find
am
it.
not going to Google it right now. I promise. I promise I will not do that to anyone. I will make a note to myself.
I agree, Curtis, and I apologize. I know I owe you a detailed review of the whole thing, but I think old growth should probably be mature clusters instead, because I don't think we have any old growth.
That makes sense. I don't think that language is in anywhere in the ordinance.
Okay.
I think that's just in the summaries that are provided here. Again, forgive me for my ignorance. I should know that factoid about old growth, as my first love was history. Paul Revere House is made out of old growth timbers. It's got those old oak timbers. Worked there for 10 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to share that pertains to this slide in particular? I guess I do have one more question. And where did 35 days come from? Just out of
The 35 days. The 35 days is a very specific day, and it's because it directly matches our current. I forget the proper term. It's our departmental It's our. Gosh darn it. It's under section 12.7 and 12.9. Whenever we receive public hearing items, special permits or site plan reviews, within 10 days, the staff person has to forward those materials to a number of different boards, which include the Conservation Commission. And within 35 days, any commentary from those boards has to be received. Lack of commentary will be taken to be no comment.
Approval.
Exactly. Except that in this case, you're not approving at all. You're just not providing any comment. Which I'm saying literally just to legally cover us a little bit here. You know what I mean? So I'm just matching that timeline explicitly. Okay. And if ever we're questioned on it, I'm just saying, I'm just tightening up the specific commentary we're looking for. No different than when I turn to the engineer and say, well, I don't know about the slopes on this project. Can you tell me about this?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that. It's just it's not the timelines that the Wetlands Protection Act establishes, and so that's why I was wondering,
right?
Where the differences come from, but that makes complete sense.
The specific, I can pull it up right here.
I believe you. It's okay.
No. Can we see my PDF up here?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Still see the slide.
Great. That's great. That's my favorite thing.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm just gonna show you right here. Can we see the PDF now?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. This section here, 12.76, generates the 10 days, and then failures of boards to make recommendations within 35 days of the referral of the application shall be deemed a lack of opposition. The way this proposed ordinance changes that is it just says, include after this the idea that the Conservation Commission should be looking for 4 new criteria, whether it's impacting habitats, mature forests, wetlands, and NHESP habitats specifically, not just any habitat. Whether it's installing compliance, stormwater ordinance compliant impervious surface, whether it's preventing sedimentation, and the other one whose name I forget. Pollinator for safe certification.
Okay.
I have questions too that I'm trying to just make sure I have my head wrapped around this properly. It's so what you're actually saying, I don't think everybody has ever asked this before, is that they'd like the Conservation Commission's non-regulatory opinion on something ecological. Is that correct? My head's just like.
Excellent summary. That is exactly what I want. And the specific reason that I want that is because the planning board I don't think this planning board is actually a really strong one, but I've worked for a variety of planning boards, and some planning boards believe that essentially like the Conservation Commission is the Lorax, that you've provide all ecological commentary that's worthy of note, and that they are therefore clean hands of it. And so I want to provide you with as much power to make commentary on that subject that the planning board is then hypothetically empowered to ignore, but would probably be well served to pay attention to.
Fascinating. And so just, okay, I was listening, I was trying to read the slides and trying to follow along. I didn't quite keep up all the way. So the third, so we're talking about the third category of site mostly for that. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. The group 3 solar sites? Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that what you were saying would be disallowed, or is the disallowed sites yet a fourth category that's not in group 3?
No, you're absolutely right. This use group 3 is the one that would be disallowed in the area of the limited solar development overlay district.
Okay. But by being disallowed, that just means that then it's a special permit process. Is that correct?
No, it's disallowed even by special permit in that area.
Like, so they can't do, they just can't do it?
Correct.
So that is not where the planning board would be looking to the Conservation Commission for input.
That's not, so we would be looking for the Conservation Commission's input when a large-scale solar development is proposed in the city of Easthampton, granting that no large-scale solar development or use group 3 solar development, whatever term you want to use, can go in the area of the overlay.
Okay. I see.
If someone comes along, says, okay, there's a couple of large parcels that are not part of that overlay district, and to be honest, we've taken a pretty bullish approach on that overlay district. We've taken a maximalist approach to the overlay district based on the feedback of the committee, understanding that it will probably be pared back in the city council process. When pared back, some parcels will fall out of the overlay and be subject to development for use group 3 solar. They would then hypothetically get special permits pulled for them in the future, and that's when the planning board would really need input from the Conservation Commission.
I see. Okay. I think I'm catching up. All right. And all right, I guess I don't have any other questions on that. The other question that I would have would be, so the stormwater ordinance currently has some weird things about it that I don't think anybody is entirely satisfied with or entirely understands how it works, but those are projects that are subject to planning board only review and don't come before the Conservation Commission. Would things stay as they currently are, where if you had a large scale solar project that met that, that class, would that continue to go through the planning board as it would now, or would this change anything to do with that?
After a lot of debate, the conclusion is that stormwater permit would still be issued by the planning board.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission's role here is hypothetically the same that they would be for any other project for which the planning board has permitting authority. It's just that the planning board is when it's conveying its, hey, we received this application to all the other departments of the city, it turns to the Conservation Commission and says, but we really need your input. It's input, just like the input we're getting from any other department, but we really need this, We tried to send over the stormwater permit, but it triggered a lot of concern about this unreasonable regulation thing, where a reasonable applicant might use that as evidence to say, I'm being obliged to get an additional permit from the Conservation Commission, to which no other special permit is subject in the city of Easthampton.
Yep. Gotcha. And we would be happy to not have to do it. I think we went through, I forget which project it was. I think it was a cannabis facility on Romelco Way, where we we basically tried to keep not getting stormwater permits for projects that were not in Wetlands Protection Act, jurisdiction where there was some kind of planning board thing going on. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say also for the record, don't feel strong-armed by my fast talking here. This is an aspirational version of a hypothetical cooperation between our boards, but it does not represent something that I absolutely need to do. If the commission says, this seems like a heavy lift and a confusing not permit that we're issuing. If you're, I know that's not what you're saying, Dan, but I'm trying to say here, don't feel ashamed or concerned to say no if this seems like just a mess, Additionally, I had something else. Don't remember what it was.
Can we dig into the stormwater permit thing a little bit more? Because I think, if I'm remembering correctly how it works, if we do have wetlands jurisdiction, then we would be issuing the stormwater permit, right?
Mhm.
It would come to us first, even though the planning board is also weighing in.
Yep.
So is that likely to cause any issues in terms of this second deliberative body unreasonable regulation thing? Because under that scenario, there would be 2 permits required from 2 different boards.
No, the standard for unreasonable regulation usually is triggered when solar is subject to additional permitting requirements above and beyond the permitting requirements of another like use. So in this particular case, of any project that triggers wetlands and special permit would require its stormwater permit to go through the Conservation Commission, and therefore would be, there's not much grounds to claim unreasonable regulation.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
One out of left field question or comment I have, and I guess maybe this relates to, I think you briefly mentioned, the ability to do agricultural activities in and around solar arrays. There was an NPR article about that a few weeks ago. Nonetheless, has the question of somehow landscaping the understory in a more, a more nature-friendly way, has that ever come up in discussions? I don't even know if that's ever, I don't know if that's consideration that has been discussed in the industry or not. I've never really heard of it, but that would be pretty cool.
So there's 2 different realms in which this ordinance and the broader permitting schema of solar tries to address this issue. The first, for the dual use solar, is dual use is obliged to obtain a state certification for non-invasive species and for maintenance from MDAR and DOER. It's an ongoing rolling permit, so it's renewed regularly. I don't believe annually, maybe biannually, that would oblige them to maintain their property to a certain standard. And I have therefore offloaded any responsibility of adjudicating how your dual-use solar panels look to them. Congratulations, they can do the work for us. Locally, for any use group 3 solar, we're going to oblige them to get that pollinator-friendly certification. I looked at that from UMass, and I recommended it as the product that we go with, essentially. But we've got a lot of language that says equivalence acceptable to the permitting authority are acceptable. Basically, the certified level of pollinator-friendly certification includes not just pollinator-friendly standards, but also certain landscaping standards that are obliged to be, friendly to local wildlife, including fence heights to allow migrating animals to go underneath them and stuff. So even just obtaining certification at that certified level vastly improves various different elements of site control. I don't know if any of them specifically speak to the understory of those tall dual-use solar panels. And you're touching on a kind of touchy subject, which is that a lot of proponents of agriculture say, well, dual-use solar is neither great solar, it's more solar than it is agriculture, because you're not going to get amber waves of grain underneath your big solar panels. But I'm leery of imposing any specific regulations on dual use solar, specifically because I want it to be a flexible option for the Section 60, Title 61 and other agricultural lands that fall in that big overlay district and otherwise would be ineligible for large solar development.
Yep. I guess where I'm coming from is, when I see the conversion of different open space areas to solar arrays, it hurts a little bit. But then when I think of, I imagine there's a lot of places that are thinking about restricting where solar arrays can go. And like, given our future, that also hurts a little bit, I don't know. It's a shame that two things that are so important are at odds with each other, I guess.
It is very tricky. One of the things that I personally feel with regard to this coming in through research is that we've tried to create so much jargon here because there's so many different ways that adaptive solar can now be proposed in the ways that it reuses structures or impervious surface or brownfields, contaminated areas, et cetera, et cetera. And we've tried to remove any barriers to their being put in. It's much easier to install those things under this new proposed solar ordinance than it was before. It's much harder to put in that large scale solar unless we get to such a point that state preemption comes in. Right now, state preemption is moving in the opposite direction. There's an understanding that under the previous program, it was a little too easy to kind of put in solar over local objections. And now they're providing a little bit more guidance for localities to actually demand special permit approval. But, if we get to a point where we really need large scale solar on greenfields, the state has every ability to preempt, just like they do with affordable housing and similar.
Yep.
I mean, that's the high watermark that your locality kind of has to defend itself until it arrives at that point, and then it can say, "Oh, okay, yeah, everyone's going to be subject to that same preemption." So, sure.
Yeah, it is hard to look at the acres and acres of solar-free large building space in the city and say, but I am sure there are large obstacles, ownership-wise and how power things are set up that make that difficult to happen. Right, Jay?
Definitely. We've talked about it a lot, but there's issues. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'm sympathetic to it. I'm not trying to say that it's, I'm not trying to say that it's easy. I sympathize with the position of large scale solar developers where, big tracts of land provide the fewest obstacles to development and are the most attractive for capital investment.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, thank you for answering my questions. I don't think I have anything intelligent to add further. Not sure I added anything.
Not me yet,
So, well, actually, I guess I may as well just ask, when the one, I guess it's the Oliver Street landfill was, when the solar array was added to that was a long time ago now. I think there was another landfill in town that was I think expressly, yeah, it was expressly included in the no ordinance. Solar area.
Yeah. It's been taken out.
Okay, that's good.
We've highlighted it and said, please put solar here.
That's positive.
It hasn't been highlighted in the overlay, but it is a brownfield. And anybody who's coming in and wants to say let's look for DEP identified wetland. DEP identified brownfields would be able to develop on it.
So
Awesome.
How would that work if you go to your next, I think it was the next slide. Whatever one summarized areas that were DEP wetlands and streams and vernal pools and...
I think it was the previous one. Hang on. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, wrong direction. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Never mind. I read the bullet and it answered my own question, which was a concern about the landfill that very much is within 200 feet of wetlands and streams.
Okay, so then it would probably therefore not be developable for those reasons.
There's
Being in a
something in
buffer
that-
zone or riverfront
No,
area
no, it would be
doesn't-
undevelopable. What am I saying? It would be, my apologies. Let me take that back. It would be undevelopable. It would be developable as it's a use group 2 brownfield, and therefore it can go in under the overlay that we see here. It's
Okay, that's what I wanted to
yeah.
wrap my head around.
It is somewhere up here.
outlet. Yeah. Okay.
We,
So can you come back to
it's Mike, real quick, before you leave this map, are there areas where it can cross between green and gray? Properties that hit two different jurisdictional areas?
There
Did we
are.
talk about that?
Yes. So the way the overlay works is the same way that our the one whose name the floodplain overlay district, the same way our floodplain overlay district does. If part of your proposed solar array strays into that green, that area is disallowed. If it's large scale solar, if it's any of the other types of solar, the use groups 1 or use groups 2, it has no additional permitting requirements, so there's no change. So it's a nice and easy designation. If it crosses the line, it can't cross the line, but otherwise it's permitted by special permit in the non-jurisdictional areas highlighted in green here, even if that line cuts across your property halfway. And you can see in a lot of cases here, that's going to be the case, especially where it's following non-lot geometry. So the 200-foot buffer out from the edges of the river and stuff like that.
So it's not allowed?
Yep, it's not allowed.
Okay.
It's not allowed if you can develop the part of your parcel that doesn't fall in that overlay, but you can't develop the part of the parcel that does fall in the overlay.
Okay. And that's clear in the language?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh, it's fine. If you
Melissa.
go back to the slide, thank you, Michael. The bulleted previous, maybe? Yeah. So, oh, nope, too far.
Sorry. My screen was loading on your computer much slower than mine. Hang on.
Ah,
There we go. Okay, I won't click it again. We're here.
okay. So I guess, and Julie, maybe you can speak to this too. So the 200-foot linear buffer around DEP wetlands and USGS rivers and streams, that is, I mean, I think the DEP wetlands layer is not field verified. That's just NWI basically repeated. So, so I guess there would be areas excluded that are actual wetlands regardless.
Sure. Go ahead, Curtis.
One of the reasons, completely agreed. This is all taken from the state's GIS database, which is notoriously inaccurate. But it's a good baseline to start with for a non-expert like me. So the expectation that I have is that use group 3's permitting requirements, including that forest type analysis, specifically say you have to identify wetlands in this area. And so there would be a discovery of those wetlands and therefore a start of a concurrent process with the Conservation Commission, in which you guys would have your traditional WPA role in addition to your advisory role here for any project that's drawing up plans for large scale solar in the city, because they'd almost certainly identify new wetlands as part of their process.
Right. And the 200-foot buffer is just being very conservative.
Yes, the 200-foot buffer was just like a best bet that I found from a couple of different sources, and I gotta say, like we're far outside of my wheelhouse. You know, I put in 100, and people were like 100 is enough, and I was like 2 is the next number I learned. So,
I mean, it applies to perennial streams. I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to understand where it's how this evolved. And then the last is just me being incredibly nitpicky, but Natural Heritage certifies vernal pools, not DEP. So,
Where did I
and
get
would
my...
that be, is that certified vernal pools and potential vernal pools, or just certified
Yes,
vernal
yeah. It's both.
Okay.
I could have sworn. Okay, obviously you're right. I only follow the metadata that Mass GIS provides to me, so I'll concede the point.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, but these bullets were kind of the starting point, and then we did a little bit of add subtract from the overlay to kind of just based on everybody's input and what.
Yes,
I
you're
don't remember
absolutely
exactly how we did it, but it's not a firm. It doesn't firmly follow those bullets. We kind of adjusted it.
It follows those bullets as a baseline and expands out from them in a couple of places. The only places where it retracts, so great example, your NHESP layer, your priority habitats and estimated habitats follow Mount Tom, right? But they don't go all the way out to East Street here. And I just bumped the layer out to East Street under the expectation that your estimates from NHESP are not so neatly linear in the actual real world, you know? Plus, there's also a large number of parcels that are right beside one of our biggest ecological treasures that we might not necessarily want to see developed for large-scale industrial use like solar. So yes, there's some expansions beyond the criteria that you see there, but the bulk of the area that that is there matches those criteria perfectly. There's been a couple of expansions here and there, but the reality is, Julie, that actual like 200-foot buffer was one of the last additions to this stew, and it overlapped with almost everything we'd already did.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's that 200-foot wetlands, pools, rivers, streams layer is the biggest contributor to the area of this zone, right behind Chapter 61 land. Where's that on? That can copy there.
And then is the intent to have this layer be static, or is it going to evolve if when Natural Heritage updates their priority and estimated habitat mapping in a way that changes? Like if Natural Heritage suddenly decides that they've approved a significant number of projects and therefore an area is no longer actually habitat. I'm thinking of a worst case example of areas in Westfield were broadly mapped for wood turtle, and a number of industrial, it's in the industrial park-ish area. And now the natural heritage mapping has been reduced significantly. I'm just wondering if the intent is to keep this overlay district as it is, or if it's to be reevaluated over time.
My intent or my bias was towards leaving a static layer, but it's not because I necessarily think that's better. It's just that I'm always leery about passing data protocols down for future generations to iterate upon, because it just ends up being a lot of legacy projects that people are like, I don't know why I'm still doing this. That's not to say it's a bad idea, and I think it might be a good idea. I want to talk about that with Jeff basically and get his feeling on it. I used to do that in Holyoke. We had a bunch of like our wellhead protections we had to update every 10 years and stuff like that. So it's not unreasonable. But you need dedicated GIS staff people, and Easthampton actually doesn't have one.
I think though, Melissa, you were suggesting that it was likely to take areas out that we would still consider valuable for other reasons, right? Not
potentially, yeah. I guess I'm just wondering if someone could come and make the argument, you know, it could successfully challenge an area because it's no longer designated as estimated or priority habitat by a state agency who's tasked with identifying and designating.
Happily, the legitimacy of the layer does not depend upon its accuracy. Zoning overlays can be almost completely subjective. The purpose of this overlay is to protect our green space, ecological resources, agricultural land, and the mix of land uses that make Easthampton a great place to live, basically. There's like a fluff statement you have to provide for it that does not cite the data sources that I'm pulling this from, but those data sources are part of the public record. You could hypothetically say it is a mismatch to this, but the zoning ordinance does not demand that you match the data sources from which you originally drew inspiration.
Okay.
I don't know whether that would be sufficient legal grounds, but zoning has been upheld through more obvious mismatches between ideal and built environment before. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of goofy examples because zoning is goofy.
Okay. That's probably why I like wetlands.
Did this go to legal at all? I forget.
It's gone to legal and it's still undergoing review, but it's not yet official in any way. It hasn't even gone before city council yet. So it'll go through the full official process and you guys will be solicited for more commentary from people more important than me down the line.
So what's the final stage here? Does the Conservation Commission need to do a final, go through the document and provide input that we think should be changed or clarity's sake, like the trees, DPH and whatnot? What's the next steps?
The next step is if anybody has any commentary, I absolutely welcome it, especially if you want to make specific comments in the document and save it and send it back with your edits. I'm happy to receive that, but there's no obligation to respond yet. You'll have another much more formal opportunity, I believe, when city council reviews it. The next step for the ordinance as a whole is for me to tighten up some language. There's some outstanding questions that we have that I want to be able to go over with other planning staff. Then it goes over to Owen Zarrett because he was the original guy who really raised this, Councilor Zarrett, and then to the ordinance committee for them to debate and then bring forward to the other boards of the city. And then at that point, you'll get a clean copy of what it will actually look like, and with the opportunity to respond as needed. Okay.
Yeah, some of the comments tonight made sense, like Melissa with the trees and different items we discussed, but thank you. Good discussion. Thank you.
So where does that leave us now?
There's no action that I can think of that you'd be obliged to take. But if anybody wants to provide me comments at any time, Cassie has my email and can obviously provide it in chat here. It's just my name. Here, I'll put it in chat. I know it's not part of the public record. But... So feel free to email me with any commentary, any thoughts, any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. This is really more than anything else a courtesy to inform you that this might be coming down the pike. And really, I mean, I'll say it again, this envisions a very different kind of role between the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. Two of the scenarios that I want to kind of get feedback from you both organically here and then much more formally when it goes before City Council is one, do you feel comfortable with this expanded role to comment on things beyond the WPA in these large-scale solar projects? Is that a role that the Conservation Commission wants, is comfortable with, feels comfortable with the implementation of here, et cetera, et cetera? And then two, and I really want to highlight this, it is formally an advisory role, and the Planning Board could conceivably say, thank you for your advice, we approve, didn't even open the letter, I don't think that would be a particularly likely outcome, especially given the makeup of our current Conservation Commission and Planning Board. But I want to highlight that possibility just so everybody knows that it exists. One of the realities that whenever you set up boards to have potentially conflicting feedback is I just want to highlight that possibility in case it engenders bad blood.
I think the only thing I would see in a worst case spiraling scenario is if the Conservation Commission's input was discarded as quickly as that. And I'm not saying I see this actually playing out this way in Easthampton, but if consistently the Commission's input were essentially not even considered, I could see a board of volunteers who, have full-time jobs and other obligations in life, basically saying, never mind.
That's what I see as the most likely worst case scenario too.
And exactly, I don't necessarily see that as a likely scenario in Easthampton at this time, but that's, what doesn't mean that there shouldn't be an effort.
But overall, you'd say that this expanded kind of advisor role is something that the commission would relish and would find, worth their time?
Relish?
If you don't want,
I'll take credit for this, Melissa. It was my idea.
Did you use that word? No, I think it makes sense. Especially given
if we take it out, just for the record, it doesn't get subject to nearly as much legal scrutiny. You know what I mean?
in that case, leave it in.
This is worth. Oh, come on. Fine.
No, I think it's beneficial to a well-rounded review.
Okay. Makes sense to me.
I guess would there be like ecological or any kind of peer review that the planning board would ask for if this process was not the case, that then they would feel like they didn't have to ask for if they were just asking us?
Great question. And the answer to that.
Right. So basically, will they be getting worse feedback from us than they otherwise would be getting through the normal process?
Great question. The answer, in my firm opinion, is just probably not. So, okay. And the reason why is that we're asking for a slate of better plans already, including that forest type analysis and the identification of total areas of clearance, stuff that we wouldn't naturally ask for the average project. That will probably satisfy most planning board members that they would not want to ask for additional peer reviews. Peer reviews tend to be a touchy subject for planning boards to pursue because they usually just return the same data that was provided before. And the problem here is not a lack of data, it's a lack of perspective on the planning board to review that data, and to determine whether the plans as submitted by the peer reviewer or by the original applicant pass the sniff check. So in this particular case, I find the idea of the planning board organically calling for a peer review and then satisfactorily reviewing that peer review to be much lower than the likelihood that the best commentary would be provided by their peers at the Conservation Commission. Not least because that commentary then gets boiled down in a way that the board is obliged to consider in a finding. And I know for every project, the board goes through its findings because they have to.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like a worthwhile process.
All right, so I think that's all I've got for my agenda item. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to email me anytime. I'll be around, okay? And of course, Cassie's also part of this working group. So, if you have any questions for either of us, Cassie, Julie, Michael, everybody's been great on that working group. And I'm going to be talking to other boards throughout the month of January just to go over some of the details. And then there'll be a final draft at some point in February. Okay?
Yeah, and I've compiled the comments from tonight, so I can share those with Curtis in like a more formal way. So that's part of the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cassie, I will send you what I found. I was using the wrong term. It's actually specimen tree. And so I will send you a series of links and a summary of that for potentially informing terminology and measurements.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, I can forward that along.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I almost signed off. No.
No.
Wait,
It's not
we're
allowed.
done.
Back to where were we?
I think we're at like 3A or 4A. It's enforcement orders is what we're at now.
Okay, yeah, right. We had no request for certificates of compliance, enforcement actions. Cassie, are there any updates?
So only for 10 O'Neill Street, I did get a response. I got a letter by the deadline. The letter is dated January 7th. The deadline we gave them was today for a response. And I can read it if you guys are all ready.
Sure.
Okay. To whom it may concern, this letter is a response to the letter received dated December 13th, 2021. The letter states that we discussed submitting a formal permit application to convert the area in question to formal vehicle storage in November of 2019. Unfortunately, due to the global pandemic and its effect locally, I am not in a position financially to proceed with this project. The letter also states that there was a follow-up letter sent in July 2nd, 2020, which I never received, and other multiple attempts, which I have no knowledge of. The business was in transition from a partnership to a sole proprietorship, and my guess is that the letter was discarded by my previous business partner, Robert Cole. Please update your records to reflect that Robert Cole is no longer part of either business. As for the state of the area in question, I have compiled or complied to let the area grow back in and will keep any vehicles from being parked there. Sincerely, Christopher Falls.
I suggest we, Cassie, did you receive a green card for receipt of the
Which one?
July letter?
So that one's weird because it got, I did receive
that was
back.
a weird one.
It had been sent, it had been signed by the postal worker as it didn't make any sense. And I ended up having to call the post office and it was a big thing. So
Yep, I remember
may
this
not have
now.
received
So
it.
let's just,
yeah.
moving
July.
forward, let's keep an eye on it and see, let's keep it on the agenda into the growing season. So that we can see if there is any natural revegetation occurring, including, no further use as vehicle storage.
Right. Yeah. I can make a point to, kind of check the area periodically, just informally. And if you agree that it'd be appropriate, I can call. He left a number here is at the top of the letterhead. So I can call and just kind of update him that we received the letter and that's kind of where we're at, if that makes sense.
Sure. And then I would document your phone call.
Yes, I will. Yeah. Or I'll send him a letter. Either way. Sorry, I didn't know if you started that by saying I should send him a letter.
No, you could send him a letter.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Okay.
That's all I have for enforcement updates.
Okay. Well, let's move on to open space updates. Are there any?
No updates.
Okay. Moving on to compliance updates. Are there any other compliance?
We bushwhacked the orchard.
Oh, when did you do that, Jay?
Oh, I thought we told this at the last meeting. I'm sorry.
No, I think it happened
We
after.
were talking about it.
We talked about that Monday and I went Tuesday and Wednesday and did or something like that. So.
Thank
So-
you.
Let me see. What else did I have for this? Mowing was completed. Landscape Inc. plans to return to do the cut stem treatment in the early spring, probably around March. They'll provide an updated plan with these timeline adjustments after the holidays. And the foliar treatment is a lot less time dependent. So that's the plan for Landscape Inc. side of things.
Okay. So, thank you. And you escaped unscathed, Jay?
Yes, it was a little wet in some places, so I just stayed away from those. 7 hours. Russell didn't even hear me, so I don't know. He called me a couple days and said, "Wow, I didn't even hear you over there." Like, I don't know. I was making plenty of noise.
Good thing you didn't need any help.
So I didn't get stuck, so that's good.
That is very good. Okay. Well, great. Now I feel like that project is finally back on track and maybe we can realize some results.
I'll be in touch in March. Keep you guys posted.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Compliance updates. Any updates?
I did have highlighted for 50 Florence Road, the solar project that we have not officially signed off on, or the commission hasn't officially approved the invasive species monitoring plan, but I'm not prepared to talk to kind of rehash it. I'd have to look at it again tonight, but maybe at the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. If you didn't already, and I apologize, if you could maybe include a specific link under for your project updates to the, that would be fine.
Okay.
That would be preferable. Just make it a little easier. All right. Are there any other relevant updates.
None that I have.
Okay, I guess the only thing I would say, looking at the upcoming expiration dates in the kind of the first half of 2022 for city projects, if the commission could be so gracious as to bring those to the attention of the relevant city departments, particularly which is the one, the pump house, is that the one?
Yep, that one is definitely coming up.
Yep, that one is coming up. The intersection.
Yep.
Is coming up. The school committee.
Yeah.
Section. So that, if they're going to need an extension, it would just be, I think, courteous of us, of you to, remind them that if they let it get within a month of the expiration date, the commission cannot act on any requests.
Okay, no, I think that's a good idea. I can definitely do that.
Okay. All right. Anything else from anyone else?
I have a general business topic.
Okay.
Is there anyone interested in being the Conservation Commission's representative for the CPA committee? Don't everybody stand up at once here.
What's that commitment?
Aren't you that person?
Yes, but if you want me to continue to be that person, you have to vote me to be that person again this year. That's all.
Oh, let's.
I
I
make a motion
you're a
to
really good
elect
candidate.
Jay as the CPA representative from the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can we do it for life?
No, I think you have to do it each year.
Okay. All those in favor, roll call vote. Busa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks,
Yeah, no
Jay.
problem. I don't know how we communicate that, but we've done this before, so it's just
I think you just keep showing up.
I know, but it came up at the last CPA meeting, so
I can send them a memo.
that's it. Minutes or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Speaking of minutes, meeting minutes, December 13th, 2021.
Yep, I got, even though Commissioner August isn't here, I did get the edits. So those are good to go and I've implemented all those. And yeah, thanks again to her for always doing that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 13th, 2021?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 13th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Busa?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. We discussed at length the draft solar ordinance review. Draft tree. That's a sign, Cassie.
Time to go.
It happens all meeting. Keeps me active.
So Cassie, you sent a link to the updated draft tree cutting policy.
Yes, and I can send it again if y'all need. It should be in the project update document. But basically, I just implemented the tree warden's comments from last time and kind of cleaned up the language a little bit more, made it more consistent, made sure everything said tree cutting instead of tree removal and things like that. But yeah, I don't know if you guys want to take a closer look.
I haven't looked at it, the revised one.
Let's, since we had such a lengthy discussion earlier, let's maybe try to everyone take a look at this closer to the next meeting and be prepared to discuss it at that time.
I'd like to comment that, Dan, your home office space, you made it look like work a little bit. So pretty good job there.
Awesome. Less distractions here, believe it or not, although they're starting to vacuum. So I think that means I got to go soon.
Pretty sure
Thanks.
that's the thing. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, wait, we have one more thing.
Oh,
We do?
Isn't it, do you guys have the updated agenda? It has 20 Pine Street.
That is not what I opened, but
Lord.
okay. 20, Cassie, what's going on at 20 Pine Street?
So there's possible violation of 20 Pine Street.
Is that a
Yeah,
butt
the-
pond?
What's
Yes.
that, sorry?
20
Yes,
Pine
it
Street, is that a butt the pond?
Yes, it does. So it looks like there was a remodel that occurred at that property and it's currently posted for sale. And images include, and the description includes a new dock that has been installed that was not
Oh, heck
permitted.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is probably more than potential.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then I don't have anything in the records to show that they did come to us and it's advertised as new. So I think that it's, maybe don't need to be so careful with my language, but.
I mean, I would draft a letter and maybe reach out to Brian Harrington at DEP. In the absence of other
Of any staff.
siblings. Yeah, I would maybe make sure you're including Brian Harrington directly.
Okay.
Um,
Yep, I have his contact, so I can do that. And
there's one more just before we leave. There's one document I want to double check here.
just before moving on from 20 Pine, I just wanted to make sure, do you guys want me to issue the enforcement order now or do the letter first? And then see if we need to go to enforcement order or we've been split in the past, I think, depending on severity.
If there's an actual
I
dock
think
there,
if
then
they put a dock in, maybe if you could somehow, is that location visible from?
You'll be able to walk there by 2 days from now.
It's visible from the other side of the pond, so I confirmed it today. There's images of it.
There's a dock. You confirmed visually that there's a dock.
There's pictures in the listing too. It's very,
Okay, then I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or
There's
buts.
no
It's a
question.
violation. We have no record of any filing, RDA, notice of intent or otherwise. And the one thing I want to check.
oh, it looks like fresh pavement going right up to the back too.
But there's other things that were done in the remodel. There's a fence that's been installed on either side of the property, extending down, not all the way to the water line. I can show you guys pictures. But basically, what I didn't know is how many of these things that were done as part of the remodel are considered, exempt under the act just because they're, you can put like a deck and stuff in. And the driveway, I don't know, I don't think that it was previously paved or not, but it is looks like potentially within the footprint. Everything else seems like potentially in the footprint. But like the fence and this paving, I don't know. I wasn't sure if that should be included in this.
I would say including but not limited to.
Yes, yep, I did that.
In Street View, it's the old, this is 20.
I can show you, I have a picture of the aerial imagery from Oliver that kind of shows what it used to look like.
Okay. So what I'm saying is if you go into Google Street View,
Mm-hmm.
the
Got
Street
dark here.
View hasn't been updated.
Nope.
And so it shows broken bituminous concrete driveway coming in adjacent to the utility pole, and then an area of no pavement between the two window wells for the basement, a small area of pavement, and then no pavement beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see some fence line in this view. You can see some pavement in this view. I would not at this point be splitting hairs over this. I would be looking straight to, and I would, what I would be looking more at would be, where is the 100-foot buffer zone from pond? And
Yep.
what is within our jurisdiction?
it's going to be basically the whole property, I think.
Again,
Yeah.
Property cards don't show any current building permits for fences or anything, but they just could be not up to date. So,
I would give, but then, aren't building permits supposed to be run by the conservation agent and other
So
departments?
I did look into if they had building permits, and they weren't. There were 2. They did not get sent to me for review, but
So,
they were.
why
I
is
think
that?
that they were. What's that? Sorry.
Why not?
I'm not sure. And I need to go look at them again, but I think that they might have just been primarily for interior work. So let me double check, which they might have made the call that if it's for interior, it's not for the commission, but I'm not sure, frankly.
So there may have been some dock-like structures there in the past.
Not
It
in a
looks
long
kind of- It looks
time.
like that in Mass GIS and Mass Mapper.
Right. That the image I got, there might be something there. It's kind of hard to tell.
It doesn't make it okay to put a new dock in, though.
Right.
There's nothing that exempts that.
Yeah. This is.
Yeah, there's what I was. So basically, the 100 feet goes to the back, that right around where your cursor is, more or less. Mm-hmm.
Is that a dock at 18 also?
Couldn't say. I mean, it could be some other floating thing. When I was out there today, I didn't notice any other docks.
Okay.
But I
If so,
wasn't.
that's also new since 2017 because I used to live at 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is from 2019. This image. So.
And we didn't permit that either. If that's a dock.
Yeah, I
No, we
can
haven't
go back
permitted
out and take a look.
Docks
Sorry?
at Nashwauk. I don't think we've permitted any docks at Nashwauk Pond. The only dock that comes to mind was properly permitted down at the Oxbow,
Right.
James the Grand.
yeah.
And that was also subject to Chapter 91. I don't believe Nashwauk Pond is a great pond or subject to Chapter 91.
I think we did another one down the Oxbow too at one point,
Okay,
but yeah, none on Nashwauk Pond.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. For 18 specifically, I didn't notice that there was a dock there. I have pictures from my site visit today. We can actually look at that. That might be more fruitful. But they might be too zoomed in. They look sketchy because you can see like the branches. I'm like in the woods on the other side. So
Going to be 5 degrees Tuesday night and 5 degrees Wednesday night. You should be able to walk there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is a dock.
It does look like there's a dock at 18
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
Okay,
Well-
so 2 letters.
Okay, cool. And then do you want to vote? Do we need to vote to issue an enforcement order right now, or do you want me to send them one as well, or just a letter?
I think they both get enforcement orders.
Okay, cool. I can do that.
Unless they could, and I think the phrasing needs to include unless unless you can provide documentation of approval, past approval, or valid authorization.
Okay, cool. And then I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but what would be the remediation in this case after the fact? Permitting, removal of the dock, or do we not know yet?
Don't know.
Okay, all right, cool.
Melissa, knowing how quickly things are selling in the Easthampton market, do we need to take into consideration at all the fact that there's likely to be a change in ownership before this gets properly handled? And if so, what might that look like?
I don't know what that would look like. Perhaps Cassie, if you could reach out to DEP and either Brian Harrington or a different regions circuit rider. That might be a more expeditious means of getting a response.
That's a good idea. What was I going to say about that?
I guess the question is, could we actually record an enforcement order against the property?
That's
The title?
That's a really good question, and it's something that
And I don't like that idea, but Julie raised.
I also I have the contact information of the realtor themselves, so that's who I was kind of planning to reach out to first and be like, "Hey, this is happening."
It's not their problem.
True.
I guess that's I feel like, the way things are set up, it's the property owner based on the current tax records.
Okay.
So I think that's the first step.
Okay. I can get that info. So yeah, I'll ask DEP. That's a good idea to reach out to a different circuit rider to see what I can get. And Brian Harrington, I'm going to draft letters and enforcement orders for 18 and 20 Pine Street, and then see if there's any. Just ask them what their opinion is of this property change thing. If we could potentially put it on the deed or whatever, we'll figure it out from there. But I'll keep you guys posted.
And I think before we ever take a step like that, I think I would maybe want to consult with someone else in the city or the city's legal counsel. I feel like that's a pretty big step.
Okay. Yeah. Nope. That makes sense to me. Okay. Cool. Well, this is helpful for me. Yeah. This is perfect. Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else. If anyone else does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to leave while there's still lights on here.
Yeah, right.
Good luck. Running out of time. All right. Motion to adjourn until
Motion to
January
adjourn.
4th, 2020, 6 p.m. Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Lisa,
Aye.
Patrick,
Hi.
Ryan,
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you, Cassie.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice night.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.